Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to come out politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Trump has given everyone advance notice of his next epic climb down. In fact, he may have given us two at once. He's announced impending 50% tariffs on all EU exports into the USA and 25% tariffs on all iPhones and Samsungs not produced in America. But there aren't any produced in America. And he could slap iPhones with 100% tariffs. And do you know what? It would still be cheaper than if they were made in America. So if we were starting to wonder if Trump was learning any lessons, the answer appears to be no, not at all. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So this is so insanely stupid that I'm wondering if Putin put Trump up to it when they had their phone call earlier this week. Oh, they're laughing at you, Don, mate, laughing at how weak you are. You know what you should do? I'll tell you what I would do. Slap 25% tariffs on any smartphones not made in America and 50% tariffs on everything from the EU, because that'll show them, because they're laughing at you. Because these latest announcements from Trump, they only help Russia. Let's look at the tariffs on the EU first of all. So Trump begins by repeating his claim that the EU was created to take advantage of the USA on trade. No, it was created to bring peace in Europe through shared prosperity. But Putin does not want a unified Europe, hence Trump's attacks on the EU. It's no coincidence that the vocal opponents of the EU, in both Europe and America, all have a history of closeness to the Russian states, like everywhere. After whining about a load of trade practices which America also engages in, because that's just how markets work, he said he's recommending 50% tariffs on all imports from the EU. So a couple of things here. What does he mean recommending? He's been unilaterally imposing and then backtracking on tariffs. No one else has been involved. Who is he recommending applies the tariffs this time? Congress? What? Second, we've seen this play before. He announces cartoonish tariffs, the market's meltdown, trade is crushed, impending shortages on American shelves, and then the inevitable climb down, whilst claiming he's won a victory when he's won nothing. Because let's look at the consequences of his Liberation Day tariffs. I mean, this was 2 months ago now, wasn't it? Nearly. He was forced to capitulate against China by reducing tariffs down to just 20% above where they were at the start of the year. So from 145% to 30%. But he won zero concessions from China. He muttered something about fentanyl, I think, but he hasn't agreed anything with China that America didn't already have on trade. So the situation is still that Trump has made it harder for American businesses to export to one of their largest markets than was the case at the start of this year, and won nothing to compensate the US economy as a whole. It's not like he's hurting some businesses who export a lot to China, but helping other ones, and the cumulative effect is net good for America. No one else has benefited from this. His trade war with China has been a miserable failure. Then there's the wider world. Trump had claimed that his threat of high tariffs, followed by the 90-day pause, aren't the deal, has brought countries begging him to do deals. Oh yes. Where are they then? More recently, Trump has said he doesn't think he's going to be able to get all the deals done within the 90 days because there isn't time. Is he going to get any? I mean, he got our Prime Minister to take part in a farce recently to announce a UK-US trade deal, which was just a mutual tariff reduction deal. I mean, Starmer was very happy to do it because it saved jobs in the car industry. It was welcome news over here, but it wasn't anything to make a fuss about. Where are the trade deals? Shouldn't Trump have been able to announce something by now? We're almost halfway through the 90-day pause, and Trump has nothing to show for it other than various surrenders on his part. Reductions in the tariffs he raised, special exemptions for some products made in China. I mean, that the 25% tariff on iPhones is a laugh because he exempted smartphones altogether from his tariffs. So how does he expect a trade war with the EU to pan out? It's probably worth mentioning, he might think he stands a better chance against the EU than China, although given what he seems to want, he will be quite wrong. China, after all, had three major advantages in their trade war with Trump, which the EU does not have. The first is that the Chinese population will put up with more losses. China's not a democracy. There is zero chance of the Chinese government being shown the door because the price of eggs went up. In the EU, on the other hand, there are some obvious US imports which the EU could absolutely hit with retaliatory tariffs, but they might not because some governments in the EU may not want to escalate it too much. The stakes are higher for European leaders facing elections. The second is that China had spent a decade diversifying markets away from dependence on American trade. That reduced the scale of the damage if the trade war had continued for longer. I mean, that being said, in pure numbers, the EU is not overwhelmingly dependent on the US for exports. In terms of goods, it's like about a fifth. I think it's just under 21% of EU exports go to the US. But unlike with the Chinese goods, the European ones are of higher value. Trump may not fear shortages of them as much as the cheap Chinese goods sold at Walmart. But third, China controlled the world market in minerals critical for the success of American tech companies. Won't be making any iPhones in America without those raw materials. And China was able to restrict the export of them as a bit of a warning to Trump, and Trump took the warning. Whereas as far as I can tell, the EU will just have to fight Trump in more conventional ways. Mind you, I notice the G7 meeting that just took place announced agreement to tackle some of China's trading practices. Now, this is something Trump wanted, so it's not really consistent with the idea of EU talks going nowhere. Because America aside, of the 6 remaining members of the G7, 3 are in the EU and 1 is more dependent upon the EU than the US. But Trump may feel he has more leverage with the EU than China because of those differences. However, he is still doomed to fail. Trump's major beef with the EU, when you look at all of the complaints he's made over the years, can be distilled down to 2 grievances. First, the EU doesn't let massive tech corporations ignore the law. I don't think the EU is about to start doing so. Second, Trump doesn't like EU standards. He views it as a trade barrier, but it's actually the easiest trade barrier to bypass. Just stop making shit stuff. Make good quality products, not a problem. It's a trade barrier which is applied equally to every country in the world. It's also a trade barrier that the US applies. America, of course, has lower standards overall, but they still have standards. They even applied them to block the import of some European products in the past, like Kinder Eggs and haggis. But again, Trump isn't going to succeed in getting the EU to lower standards because doing so would cause more damage to the EU than Trump's tariffs. And this is the same fallacy as running with a 25% tariffs on iPhones and Samsungs not made in America. It's cheaper to take the tariff hit than to shift production to America. It's been theorized that if you were to shift manufacture to America, if iPhones were made in America, they'd cost $3,500 each. 25% tariff. You'll take the 25% tariffs. But all that's going to do is Trump is just going to raise the prices for people. Apple won't sell as many phones, so they won't make as much profit. Lower taxes. Fewer jobs. And the same will happen with these tariffs on EU goods. The EU will obviously have to fire back because they are strong enough to do so. We weren't. The EU are strong enough to do so. They can hurt America with retaliatory tariffs, and the EU public will demand it. And Trump's demands are impossible to agree. It may even trigger consumer boycotts of American goods beyond Tesla's. This could cause real long-term damage to American industry. If Trump even goes ahead with it, and you can't rule it out just being a hollow threat, it will just stoke inflation in America. Yes, of course, it will stoke it in the EU as well as a result of retaliatory tariffs. But it will definitely do it in America because it's a blanket. It won't be targeted. It's a blanket 50% tariff he's talking about. That will make recession more likely, if not certain. It will result in Trump eventually having to surrender again with absolutely no gains made. But it is showing us one thing. I mean, Trump has absolutely humiliated himself. So he's obviously not one for learning lessons. It's looking like this is now going to be the pattern of life for the next few years. Trump clearly can't let go of his tariff strategy, and he has surrounded himself with economic morons. And it'll come as little comfort towards when Trump does have to climb down, because the damage he is causing will be widespread, and he only plays into Putin's hands. Trump's saying to Europe, raise the amount you spend on defence. Well, how are we going to do that if you're crushing our trade, mate? Which is why I'll repeat that I would not be at all surprised to learn that this all came about during that phone call at the start of the week with Putin. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.